In the last video, we took a look at some of the level designs and gameplay mechanics of Sonic 1, so naturally we'll follow that up by analyzing Sonic 2 in a similar fashion. Let's jump right in and cut the bullshit! So I just want to open by repeating myself to clear up the confusion that I'm going to be covering most Sonic games in the series. I'm not going to cover the rise and fall of an icon in a 20-minute video. I got a lot of shit to say. I've learned from my first 2 videos that Sonic fans are probably the most defensive individuals on the internet. So just take a few deep breaths and enjoy the show, you crazy kids. I'll try to be aware of my own bias and treat every game fairly, so seriously, just chill the fuck out. Sonic 2 is a fantastic game, and in my opinion, one of the best in the entire series. So I'm much more excited to talk about this one compared to the original. That was just a formality. As the game starts up, we hear the usual Sega jingle, but then we're shown a sentence that says Miles Tails Prower, before being introduced to his cute little face at the title screen. And only now do I realize his name is a pun. If you take away Tails, you're left with Miles Prower, which sounds like someone slurring the phrase miles per hour. Alright, that's pretty good. The title screen, as you'll notice, is almost identical to the first game. Sonic and Tails make a more daring introduction in the middle of the emblem, busting out some cool 90s poses before the game starts. You see, after the release of Sonic the Hedgehog, Yuji Naka was getting tired of Sonic Team's policies and moved to America to work for Sega Technical Institute, whom handled most of the zone art and special stages, while Sonic Team continued to handle the level designs and programming. And also, Sonic Team was the original group that made Sonic 1. They made a group. That was a thing. I forgot to say that in the first video. Sonic Team once again held an internal contest to see who could design Sonic's sidekick for the sequel, and Yasushi Yamaguchi, the main artist and zone designer for Sonic Team at the time, stepped up with his submission, and he was like, how about this Fox thing? He's got 2 tails. And Yuji Naka was like, yeah, I mean, you know, it works. And Yamaguchi's like, well, thanks for choosing my design, but I think it deserves a little more credit than that. And Naka's like, yeah, well, I mean, it's an orange fox with shoes and gloves. It's not that groundbreaking. And Yamaguchi was like, dude, what the fuck is your problem? And Naka was like, I'm not trying to be mean, I just think it's sort of basic. And Yamaguchi was like, Tails' appearance in Sonic 2 doesn't actually mean much in the gameplay department, but it now means that you can play 2-player with your friends, both kind of and literally. There's a specialized and surprisingly robust 2-player split-screen versus mode where you can compete against your friends with a variety of rules. And there's a pseudo-multiplayer mode in the main game, meaning a second player can control Tails as long as he's on screen, which unfortunately for player 2 is rare. Also, you can play as Knuckles if you put Sonic 2 into the Sonic and Knuckles adapter, and since he wasn't officially introduced until the next game, that's all I'm gonna say about that. So I think it's time to take my background in experimental psychology and put it to use. The part I found most enlightening and vital when designing experiments was the definition of your terms and variables and how they interact with one another. For example, if I called my ex and begged her to come back to me, the variables in that study would be how much tequila I drank, if she has anything else she can gain from dating me, and how many other guys she already had lined up waiting to fucking replace me. I just need a minute here. We all have vastly different opinions of what defines a good Sonic game, so I figured I should ask, what the fuck defines a game as being a Sonic game? Some of us grew up with the classics and think the series died after it went to 3D. Others really enjoyed the fun aspects of the adventure games that recently became trendy to badmouth. And others grew up with the newer Sonic games and see them as perfectly fit installments. The only logical decision would be to write a thesis or whatever. I'm only gonna follow the methodology I think will aid us in our understanding of that question, without sacrificing entertainment value. Because if I was truly faithful to research procedures, I'd be sitting here like, Sonic is a character. A character is defined as a person in a novel, play, or movie. Robotnik is an antagonist, defined as a person who opposes That's fucking boring! To start, I think we can agree that a Sonic game is, well, putting it loosely, a platform game starring Sonic the Hedgehog, in which he speeds through colorful and diverse worlds with multiple routes and a brilliantly scored soundtrack, with the goal of putting a stop to Dr. Robotnik's destructive ambitions, while also trying to move past obstacles as quickly and efficiently as possible. He collects rings to stay alive and dies when he's all out. And at the end of the levels, he steps on a capsule to release imprisoned animals. And with the introduction of Tails into the series, we can say that Sonic games add new anthropomorphic friends to the playable roster. That's really the gist of it for now. The first zone is Emerald Hill, which, let's be honest here, is more or less a copy of Green Hill Zone. And like I said in the first video, Green Hill Zone is the best introduction to a Sonic game, because it shows you the basics of what to expect in a Sonic level, with lots of fast-running bits and minimal obstacles, minus pretty much any pitfalls to ensure the player isn't discouraged right away from any unfair deaths. The same rules apply: big green chunks of land with brown checkerboard soil, a variety of badniks shooting projectiles, and a series of spikes at the bottom of the map to discourage you from playing poorly early and taking the low road. But unlike Sonic 1, where you could fall off the stage here, here, and here, Emerald Hill Zone Act 1 has 0 places from which the player can die. Act 2 has 2 small pitfalls, but it's unlikely you'll ever even see them normally. Tails' appearance in the game is slightly anticlimactic, considering how you can see him flying back into frame when he falls behind. But when you're playing as him, he can't actually fly. He's essentially a palette swap of Sonic. He can spin dash and perform both the jumping and rolling spin attack, but that extra tail of his never actually comes in handy here. Don't worry, buddy, you'll get your day. And on the topic of the spin dash, man oh man is this thing a lifesaver. In Sonic 1, there were plenty of situations where you'd have to run back and build momentum to get through a corkscrew or even just up a ramp. With the spin dash, you're basically given a portable bumper in your back pocket that never runs out. The stage's music is very lackadaisical, with a bouncy bass line that feels like it's trying to say, don't worry if you fuck up, it's basically the tutorial level. No one's judging you. And of course, the background has a huge field of grass, followed by mountains and another enormous body of blue sparkling water. The first thing you'll notice is that the 3 acts per zone from Sonic 1 have been shortened into 2 acts. At the end of Emerald Hill Zone Act 2, Robotnik slowly lowers himself onto the base of a drill car thing, after which he begins slowly moving from side to side around the level. You'd think it would be laughably easy, but I always manage to get hit here. My ego. It is bruised. On the 7th hit, he'll shoot his front drill at you, and then when he realizes he has no weapon and looks like a fucking idiot, he takes off. Then you step on the capsule, and the animals are like, holy shit, there was no air in there, I almost fucking died! And of course, you gotta edge pose. It's just tradition. Next up is Chemical Plant Zone. The entire level is a grimy factory with a colorful city blinking in the background, and what seems to be a bright yellow lake, possibly irradiated by chemicals. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, when I was a kid, this place filled me with so much fucking dread. But now that I'm an adult, it only slightly terrifies me. And don't even pretend like that flickering pink water doesn't look like dangerously corrosive, skin-melting hazmat chemicals. Sonic, that's cancerous, you're gonna need chemo! The level starts off with this cool double helix squiggly ramp thing, and if you ride the Robotnik-esque platform, the top one takes you up and to the right, while the bottom one takes you down and to the left. Generally in Sonic levels, the top path is fastest, but in this case, if you take the low route and jump over the bumper following the shuttle loop, you actually have less ground to cover compared to the top, and significantly less compared to the bottom, which has you taking time-consuming yet incredibly fun tubes to reach your destination. And curiously enough, the tubes themselves have little consistency as to which direction they'll take you, with seemingly random courses taking priority each time. As you head lower into the level, you'll notice the bottom half is comprised of yellowed factory bits like conveyor belts and railed walkways, with plenty of black and yellow hazard stripes found throughout the facility. I really like the yellow and blue pipes I mentioned earlier. It's almost like the level was made just for them. The music's really the best part of the stage, as it takes what could have been a gloomy, dangerous factory and turned it into a sassy, upbeat, futuristic-sounding ear trip that keeps you coming back for more. While I can't perfectly explain why the song is so good, I can only point out the bouncy octaves used for the bass line that help it feel extra progressive and fast-paced. I know it makes no sense, but when I hear this song, I think of a big monorail powering towards its destination with steadfast determination, likely due to the song genre in general sounding very electronic and dance-oriented. And the 2 slides used towards the end of the loop help the song feel just as powerless and out of control as the level design itself. The enemies are simple, just some spider robots called grabbers that try to drop down and pick you up. If they succeed, they'll grab you and flash before exploding, making you lose all your rings. If you mash buttons, you can break free before they explode. And these weird ground urchins called spinies are best to take out by rolling, but if you try to jump on them from above, it's likely they'll hit you with a projectile that comes out of their spiky beak thing. They're also placed on walls at times, to try and get you before you jump on a bounce pad or into the transport tubes, but they're also easy to take out from below. Oh, and those pipes have blue liquid running through them that I only just noticed, which would explain these random spouts with dancing blue goop. Might want to hire a contractor to redesign your factory, because that's an occupational hazard, and you're gonna get sued. By the way, I was being completely serious. That pink liquid was and still is scary. Most people died here as kids when they dump you into the big vertical pit that fills up with water, because if you can't slow down and recognize the timing of the blocks, you're going to eventually run out of air, or failing that, fall to your death. I initially thought you can get crushed by the moving blocks too, but I was intentionally trying to end myself on the blocks and they just wouldn't cooperate, so that's not very likely. I also like how the game conditions you to be scared by having you lightly submerge into it while you're in the pipe, as if to say, it's almost here, bitch, can you taste it? After clearing the flooded shaft, you head left only to find flip panels that dump you back into the spiral pathway just before, wasting your time and leaving you with even less time to avoid drowning. Intriguingly, this next part has you trying to travel between 2 constantly moving platforms, which have a really cool light on both sides that's kind of hypnotizing to watch. But if you happen to understandably fall when trying to go between them, the level lands you on a safe little platform surrounded by spike pits, as if have to say, I'm giving you a second chance, don't fuck this up. You're even able to jump up and get a little breath of air if you have a tough time understanding how the flippers work. The next part, however, has a bottomless pit that will make quick work of you unless you manage to get saved by the appropriately placed block steps below. Even more than that, the last screen before you fight Robotnik has some pits that kill you instantly, and if you let his blue goop attack hit you, it'll knock you back and possibly send you bubbling to your doom. But it takes forever to fill up, so he's wide open to attack. I honestly thought his goop splash would hit you for collateral damage, but it doesn't do anything. That was a missed opportunity. I'm mad at you, son. Oh, I almost forgot about this cool shortcut I never knew about as a kid. After the slow-moving blocks towards the end of Act 2, if you jump over the dash panel and jump off the raised bit of road shortly after, there's actually a small area just above it that skips the entire water segment with lightning speed and lands you on top of two 10-ring monitors and an invincibility power-up before sending you through a series of grates that drop you in right before the boss fight. That was nice of them. But to me, this level embodies the Sonic 2 experience entirely. Fun, beautiful, and a splash of danger. I'm serious though, that pink stuff was cancerous. I have medical bills, help me. GoFundMe.com/ChaseFace Show!